Well, you've all done one at some stage, but did you know the pitch deck is one of the things our next guest still gets asked the most about by startup founders? And according to Stone & Chalk's National Head of Community, her first response is always that you actually need two versions tailored to two different target groups. Cheryl Mack is here in the studio to explain the difference. Cheryl, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Cheryl, great to have you join us. So let's start with the basics. What are the essentials everyone should have in a pitch deck, and what's the one thing you see that shouldn't be in there?
Well, look, the key things that need to be in there, it's around team, market, what's the opportunity. If you're going for investment, particularly early stage in that first like seed or angel round, you do need to share what you are actually offering in terms of how much you are raising, what's on offer, is it a safe note or a con note? And then it really is just around getting your messaging across. So again, like Moira mentioned, you need to have two of them, or actually often more. And it really is around that context. So what is the context that you are using this for? Are you pitching it on stage, or are you sending it to an investor via email? And start with that.
So there's a great piece that you wrote for us last week on Startup Daily, which is about the difference between investment and the pitch deck. Just walk us through the ideas so people who haven't read it yet, and you must read it, get an understanding.
Yes, so as you said, I do get asked quite a bit to provide feedback on pitch decks, and often it goes something like this. A founder says, hey, can I send you my pitch deck and get some feedback? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely no problem. And then what I get is a slide deck of sorts, which is somewhere between 10 to 15 slides, and a lot of them are simply a title slide, the problem, and a photo, or like a pie chart with very little explanation around what that pie chart is supposed to represent, which I call this the actual pitch deck. That is something that you use when you are pitching in person. You have it there, you're presenting, you're speaking, you're providing that context. But when you email that to me, I don't have any of that context. And what concerns me most is the thought of these founders sending that to an investor, such as Steve, our previous guest, and then wondering why they didn't get any response to that.
So what are some of the biggest howlers you've seen in pitch decks?
Howlers.
The howlers, I said,
Forgive my Canadian. Howlers. I would say things around like glamour shots of the founders. I've seen that. Yeah, glamour shots of the founders, not great. I did see one where a founder was sprawled across like a Mercedes-Benz, or it might have been a Ferrari.
Yeah, at least you know where the investor's money's going first up.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the other one that I've seen though is photos that are just there that don't seem to have a relation. So don't put a photo of you and your dog if your pitch has nothing to do with dogs or pets. You have to think about what is the message and what are we trying to evoke from this slide in particular. And if we do need to have some imagery, let's make sure it's working towards that goal rather than
And I remember
random.
one of the things that Alan Jones, the entrepreneur and investor, said, don't use stock photos. Keep stock photos out of there too. He's not a fan.
I think that's...
Different view?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm less, I guess, strong opinionated on that point. I think a well-placed, well-communicated stock photo can be effective. I wouldn't throw every slide having stock photos. Again, when you're sending a deck ahead of time, you need to have that explanation. So it has to be able to be read in itself.
For the investor version, how much detail do we need on those key line figures? Obviously, it's all about money and the bottom line on that side of it.
Yes, you do need to have some level of your financials. So if it's the first time that you're reaching out, let's say it's something cold, or you've met them briefly in person and they've said, oh, send me your pitch deck. That first kind of initial one that you send really is about communicating those key details to get them excited. You want to pique their interest. So you don't need to go deep. You don't have to have Excel spreadsheets copied in there going super deep into the financials. You just need to get them excited enough that you know your financials, you've projected your growth, you've got a roadmap, and you have an idea. So they want to take that meeting with you. They want to spend a bit more time going deeper into those details with you in person.
We've spoke about the howlers, obviously. What about the ones that are just gaining traction straight away? What do they look like?
The ones that gain traction quite quickly, I think, are the ones who communicate that story very well. So if you think about the deck from start to finish, it's around creating that emotional connection to the problem. Even if I don't necessarily know the problem, you need to be able to communicate it in a way where I can relate to it, or the investor can relate to it almost immediately, can grasp onto that problem and see the solutions, see the potential there. And it's generally communicated in quite simple terms. So if you can't explain your business model in very simple human terms that most people can understand, then you're going to have problems.
So aside from sort of hundreds of startup founders heading to Cheryl Mack tomorrow for advice on how to put their pitch deck together, where else should they go to get advice, and who should they run it past to see if it makes sense?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of resources online, not least of which is the capital raising guide that we've just released, but also mentors. There are lots of people out there. I would say don't go out and look for a paid person to do your pitch deck for you. You need to know that, and you need to be able to produce that so that you can feel, you need that connection to it. And investors don't want to see your pitch deck coming from some person, some advisory firm that you've paid. But I think, look, starting online, there are many great resources from 500 Startups, YC, Andreessen Horowitz. There are many resources online. That's where I would start. And then I would reach out to another founder who might be 6, 10, 12 months ahead of you and get them to look it over. Most founders who are a bit more successful are happy to give back and look back. So I think that's where you would start.
Is there a pitch deck that sticks out in your mind as one of the best you've ever seen?
Oh, fire festivals for sure. I'm kidding. Do not look at that one.
We were definitely going to check that out.
I do have it though.
Oh, yeah.
I saved it.
Cheryl Mack from Stone & Chalk, thanks so much for coming in and sharing your tips for those pitch decks and for all of those budding startups out there who are yet to do it. So.
And Fire Festival was a great idea, possibly.
Appreciate your time today.
Thank you.